Hi Ashwin,
Yeah, Dipak.
welcome to this Data Success Exchange. This is our first DSC predominantly focusing on analytics, ML, AI, and uh, we cannot find a best and a better person than you to start this journey of ours. So we have some questions which we would basically ask you and take your thoughts, take your you know uh, words on it, how things are shaping in terms of MLAI, specifically in pharma and life sciences domain. Then there would be certain audience related questions as well, which we will throw in your way. So starting with the first question, Ashwin, it is a very basic question, but it generally sets the agenda of the entire DSC for today. That pharma and life sciences companies, they have been using analytics, ML, AI since ages, right? uh, what are some of the use cases and how this business functions, like quality, R&D, or commercial functions, clinical trials, R&D department, how these functions are using ML, AI analytics in their day-to-day operations?
Okay. So, Deepak, first and foremost, thank you and the Indus Net team for inviting me on this forum. I'm really flattered. And now let us deep dive straight into your question. See, the pharma industry, pharma companies uh, have been using analytics in whatever its previous avatars were. And guys, I'm on the webcast, please. Uh, Okay, and the analytics which they use today is primarily to drive the improvement in their operational KPIs and drive their overall business goals. Okay. Uh, See, the core functions like R&D, manufacturing, quality, supply chain, and commercial would see a lot of analytics initiatives as well as capability building. Okay, uh, if you look at the kind of analytics which is being done, you would find that it ranges from small POCs where you're trying to test out newer solutions, newer concepts, to larger programs which will create a bigger impact on the organization, right? So on the scale of impact also, you will see initiatives like dashboarding and reporting, which are on the lower side of the food chain, which enable business users take decisions and actions in real time. And then you'll also see high-end sophisticated models for prediction and recommendation. For example, machine failure prediction, okay, or coming out with an optimized recommender for improving the yield of a manufacturing line. So today, pharma companies are actually doing analytics across the length and breadth of the organization, and specifically the core functions are at the center of attention. Now you spoke about. Let us start with R&D. Okay, we'll talk about two three core functions, right? So let us talk about R&D. Uh, what is the mandate of R&D? The mandate of R&D is to develop newer molecules across different levels of complexities across therapeutic areas. Okay. Now this essentially means that if you want to define that in a single sentence, you want to increase the operational throughput of the R&D division. Okay. Now, what are some of the use cases which are enabling those? I think one of the best use cases which comes to my mind, which some of the pharma companies are already working to build, and other pharma companies have this use case on their roadmap, is an ROS recommender, a route of synthesis recommender. This is an AI recommendation engine, which will recommend the scientist, the synthetic chemist or the process chemist, which reactions to do so that he's able to develop his compound in the smallest possible time. Okay. Now this is basically increasing his own productivity, and at a higher level, if all the scientists in the team are benefiting from this, this is increasing the overall process speed as well. Okay. Another use case which is in the making across pharma companies is an API excipient compatibility database and recommender. Okay, excipient is something which is added to an API to bulk it up and to create a stable formulation. Lactose, or what we call as milk powder, is one of the most commonly and widely used excipients in the pharma industry. Right? Just to take an example. Now, this database and recommender will tell you what are the 2-3 excipients which you can use with a certain API so that you can create a stable formulation. So instead of doing trial and error with a lot of excipients, you are able to save time if you have this kind of a database and tool at your disposal.
Got it.
One of the other examples in the R&D space which I can take is the tracking and analysis of utilization of equipments across R&D labs. Right, specifically the HPLCs, the UPLCs, the mass spectrometer. Some of these are high capex equipments, and the management wants to optimize or maximize the utility of these equipments. Okay, and then another example is the automation of analysis of reports which are coming from R&D labs post the various tests which they are doing on the molecules which they are creating. So these are some of the from the R&D function. Okay, now let me very quickly talk about clinical trials. Okay, clinical trials is typically done by clinical research organizations, right? And the analytics starts right from the design stage, right? So at the design stage, CROs are doing analytics to, or not CROs, but the pharma companies who are sponsoring the entire study, the clinical study or the clinical trial, are doing analytics to optimize the budget for the clinical trial by putting the constraints and the outcomes around what the clinical trial should deliver. Okay, so you have to conduct a clinical trial with so many number of patients across so many sites and countries, right, in such a limited span of time. What is the minimum budget in which I can accomplish this? Okay, so once you set up the clinical study, then you move into patient recruitment, right? Now, today there are companies who offer patient registries or patient database along with recommendation, to the extent that if you feed in your study parameters, this tools will tell you named patients by name to whom you can approach and try to enlist them in your study. Okay, once the study starts, then there is operational analytics of the sites. The sites are your clinics, they are laboratories, they are your hospitals, right, where patients come as a part of the study. So there are KPIs around patient recruitment, there are KPIs around screening failure rates, right? There are KPIs around cost per patient interaction. Okay, there are KPIs around what is the speed with which the site is operating and is able to document the patient data and then feed it back into the main system. Once the clinical study starts, the patients, in some of the clinical studies, the patients will experience a change in life or lifestyle, right? Say you are doing a cancer or oncology trial, the patient will be subjected to severe side effects. So today patients can document their experience through an app, right? And the data scientists are studying the change in the quality of life of the patient. So this is called QO, patient QOL analytics. Okay. There is one more analytics which is done across studies. So when you're trying to do the clinical trial for a chemical compound, you will not do just one study, you will do multiple studies, right? For example, data, and this is called data pooling analytics. So you will pool data across multiple studies and try to do analytics on that. A very good example of this, if you've heard, many years back, there was a drug called Vioxx launched by Merck, which was supposed to treat arthritis, but ended up causing heart attacks into patients, right? And this was discovered because some analysts actually pooled the data together and discovered that, no, this is something which is happening. Okay. And last but not the least, you can also do pharmacoeconomics analytics, right? Which is basically the comparison of drugs or therapies across various parameters. So, for example, one drug costs you $500 but take 4 months to cure the patient. Another drug costs $1,000 but cures the patient only in 1 or 2 months. Which one you would go for? Right? This is a very simplified example, but then companies are doing this kind of analytics in a case to bolster that even though their drug is expensive, it is much faster and efficient than the other competition in the market. Okay, so these were some of the use cases from the clinical trial space, and let me quickly touch upon the commercial function. Um, the most widely done analytics in commercial is your sales and pipeline analytics, right? Where the sales team or the sales head is trying to analyze the status of opportunities across product, geography, customer combinations, right? The heat map of opportunities, which opportunities are moving slow and require intervention, which are not, which are moving fast and know you can close the deal very quickly, right? To get a real-time handle on how their pipeline is looking. 3x or 5x time period quarters down the line. Okay. Um, uh, there is another very interesting AI driven use case which is coming up, which is an AI led recommendation engine. Okay. Now this engine would actually crawl across multiple public as well as subscription websites and databases, and give you insights on what competition is doing, what your customers are doing, what is happening in the market, and give you a potential lead on which could be a sweet spot for your product geography customer combination. That in this geography for these customers, the competition presence is very less or is not there, and you can pitch your product because you've already filed for your product in that geography, right? There is another type of AI-driven use case which many companies are trying to build, which is a pricing recommender engine. Now, a lot of pharma companies get their business through the tender channel or the RFP channel, where they bid for tenders which are issued by large pharmacies, right, like Walmart Pharmacy, group purchasing organizations of hospitals, government institutions, military and police institutions, right?
Mhm.
And this engine would actually recommend that, please pitch your product in this pricing range so as to maximize the chances of your win. Okay. Then there is digital marketing analytics, because a lot of pharma companies are today doing digital marketing, right? So there is analytics of digital marketing as well as social media sentiment analysis as well. So these are some of the use cases, which are being prominently built up, or pharma companies at least have a roadmap to build this in the commercial space.
Sure, Ashwin. So, Ashwin, taking your words on how these pharma companies they are embracing to become, data savvy, starting from building uh, as basic as a dashboard to as high as creating those predictive models and AI models. What sort of a challenge you foresee in terms of the management and in terms of people in pharma companies being agile to adopt this change from a non data centric to a becoming a AI driven a pharma company.
See, see, there are multiple ways to look at this. Okay. See, primarily, there are two aspects which have to go hand in hand. Okay, one is the change in the cultural shift, the change in the mindset, and which has to reflect in the change in the behavior on a day-to-day level, at a ground floor level, right? Uh, Now, if you look at the pharma industry, see, there is something very characteristic about this industry. One is that this is highly regulated. Okay. Second is that the end consumers are the patients. But unlike other industries, here you are not allowed to touch your patients. You cannot talk to them. You cannot even mail them. You cannot call them. Right. So the elbow room, right, for uh, creative maneuvers is very limited, right? And since this is a heavily compliance driven industry, the industry will lean more towards compliance than creativity, right?
Yeah.
Even if there is creativity, it has to be within the bounds of compliance till the time the let's say the regulation evolves, right? For example, I'm just digressing a bit. So um, uh, software as a medicine or digital therapeutics was a novelty a couple of years back, but today it is being accepted. Some of the states in US have formally accepted it. Some of the insurance companies also in the US healthcare space cover it, right? So there has to be a see, the change is going to be gradual, Okay. Uh, any new technology which comes in will have its own wait and watch period. Okay. Unless the technology lies in any of these core functions of pharma, which I spoke about, where the adoption would be more straightforward.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the technology has to go through the typical cycle of being explored, tested, POC is done, and then gradual uh, uh, adoption through a use case journey. Okay, so I was talking about the cultural shift, right? Uh, One is that the pharma companies today, I find that they are much more open and flexible towards adopting technologies from outside. I mean, there is the entire digital transformation, I would say, to a large extent, is influenced by the likes of Amazon, Google, and Netflix. Right? We spoke about recommender. Now, this idea is has been used by Netflix for the last 20 years. Right? So there has to be an openness to be influenced from outside, to adopt the best practices from outside, right, and to let go of some of the old ways of working, which is gradually happening. Okay. And uh, I think the ecosystem, including the regulation, also has to play some role in it. Okay, they have to provide the right stimuli for tech to come into pharma. Okay. A lot of advancements which you see in the future will come from pharma tech. The way fintech has brought in
Yeah.
innovations in finance industry, right? Pharma tech will bring in innovations in the pharma industry, and the industry is opening to it. Second is now more on a execution or a tactical level. Okay, um, data is the foundation for analytics. You need a strong data layer. Okay, which brings us to the point that data will be generated with through digital systems. That means you need to digitize and digitize heavily. Okay, even if you digitize, you will have systems which do not talk to each other. Right, ERP systems, CRM systems, MES systems, SCADA systems are all generating data in their own format. So that means you need to invest very heavily in now doing the data field transformation and create a layer. Why can't the technology companies come together and in a forum, right, and create a data quality standard? Today companies are adopting data quality standard, but that is an individual company level, right? And that's a big change that requires you to change a lot of things on the ground. It is costly, it is time taking. Okay. uh, some of these things have to happen, right? So the analytics to data to digital, digital to quality, that entire connection has to develop, has to become more vibrant, right? So that it is easier for companies to get clean and correct data on which analytics can be readily built.
Yes. So the other day, Ashwin, I was studying about this clean and complete data. So specifically, there are companies who have come up with a terminology called epistemology. So this is essentially, understanding the data sources, how fruitfully they are integrating within the entire ecosystem, and how complete the data they are giving in. So this word epistemology has is becoming basically a pro in our data analytics arena. And now, talking about the newer and the cutting edge technologies, I am pretty much sure your Facebook and your LinkedIn profiles would be bombarded with a word called Chat GPT, right? Now, Chat GPT is revolutionizing the AI industry when it comes to large language models, right? And when when we are talking about pharma and life sciences company, there are a lot of unstructured data that we are talking, right? Starting from handwritten prescription to the image processing techniques coming for mass spectrometers and the chromeleons, right? So there are a lot of unstructured data that we're talking in pharma and life sciences. How do you think that this Chat GPT uh, can play a role in structuring these unstructured data that are available in pharma companies? Or I can how pharma companies are well equipped to basically embrace this Chat GPT technology that is there in the market, and GPT-4, which is again is there to revolutionize the entire AI ecospace.
Yeah, see, and I'm no expert, right? So, but from whatever I understand of Chat GPT, which is GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, uh, this look to be, technologies with explosive potential, right? As far as it comes to text mining and analytics. Okay, and with GPT 4, even looking at image analytics as well. See, from a pharma industry perspective, again, as I said, these are newer technologies which are not exactly lying or coming within the core functions of pharma, right? So pharma companies will take a measured approach. But however, this time I see that the excitement and the speed with which pharma companies are talking about adopting the GPT stack is much more, as compared to what it was for some of the previous technologies, right? Um, I read on LinkedIn that there was an incident where some data from Samsung was leaked, right? So some developer uploaded some code with bugs and asked ChatGPT to modify it or correct it. And in another instance, they were having a meeting with senior management, and the notes were uploaded on ChatGPT. And within no time, the data was public. So ChatGPT essentially is a public database on which their algorithms are running, right? So that is one of the risks, that your data is not private if it is ChatGPT. With GPT-4, I think they have addressed that. You can have your own private instance, so data privacy should be taken care of. However, the larger question is, um, for all of us to think that how these technologies will help us fulfill our business objectives, right? Um, and I could think of some two three use cases, right? So the first one is on service of providing information. There is a lot of information which is lying across multiple databases, across data and documents, uh, in silos today, right, in pharma companies. Now, can we create a general chatbot powered by ChatGPT, which can provide information to all stakeholders, product and medical information to doctors and patients, information to vendors on where the status of their payment is, information to employees internally on some HR policies or employee policies or whatever program, right, rewards and recognition program, etc. Uh, that could be one very powerful use case, uh, right? Which plays to the strength of the GPT stack. Another one could be on content creation, because I think that is what I saw the examples of ChatGPT doing, that it can create content. So it can create content for our digital marketing campaigns. It can create. I'm assuming it can create a lot of documentation, because pharma companies create a lot of documentation, right? SOPs, quality reports, APQR reports, right? So the question is, can it create a lot of those documentations consistently adhering to certain quality requirements? That is where now we want to curb on creativity and more on compliance, right? Because the documents go to regulators and customers, right? So the documents have to be consistent and they have to be accurate. Okay. And the narration has to be scientific, right? So can GPT do that? And if it can do that, I think it will help in automating some of this non-value adding activities, right, which a lot of skilled people end up doing. Um Another use case, is it possible for this tool to crawl through multiple documents, right, say manufacturing and quality documents, and come up with a correlation between, say, product issues or product quality and process parameters, that this product is facing this issue because it was manufactured on this manufacturing line under this process conditions? Can it do something like this? If it can do something like this, again, then this is a very powerful use case, which is for internal consumption. So the question for compliance is also not there, right? So I think yes, the answer to your question is yes. Uh, Assuming that the concerns on data privacy and infosec are addressed and taken care of, I think there are some use cases in which the pharma companies can immediately dive in and start exploring.
Got it, Ashwin. Thanks for sharing those knowledges on Chat GPT. Uh, you said that these pharma companies obviously is a heavy regulated environment, companies that we are working with. Now there would be certain cases there. Let's take a small example of clinical trials and R&D, right? That the pharma companies, they are working on small POCs, they are developing those POCs. But when the time is coming to scale them up, right, in various geographic location, various business functions, that's where somewhere we identify there is a technical roadblock, right? So how can pharma and life sciences companies, they scale up these functions, they scale up these small POCs, uh, taking into account the assistance from external vendors, external third party vendors, and create this entire small POCs into a big scalable solutions for them.
See, see, pharma companies are pharma companies, right? And they are not, say, an Amazon, Google, or Netflix, right? So, having said that, when it comes to technology, and I believe that when you say technology, you're talking about digital data analytics technologies, right? Which pharma companies want to adopt. Uh, Today, most of the pharma companies are following, a very open, flexible, and hybrid approach. Okay, in this approach, um, they want to do a lot of strategic thinking themselves in house, uh, with the aid and help of stimuli from outside, right? Of course, there is a lot of influence of some of this startups, digital e-commerce, as well as analytics and data companies, right? They'll also probably take the help of some management consulting firms to provide them with thought leadership and to help shape and structure their strategy in this space. Okay. Um, so the ideation is done with the help of the partners, like consulting companies, management consulting firms, or some of these leaders in the data analytics space. Okay. Uh, then there is the execution, right? And that is where you're, I think, talking about how do you do POCs, how do you scale up. Again, within that paradigm, see, when it comes to executing large chunky programs like say an MES rollout or a HANA rollout, companies are going with large system integrators or technology consulting companies. Okay, when it comes to exploring newer technologies like say GPT, companies want to work with nimble and agile companies, right? Which are small, which could be startups or small and medium scale companies, which would quickly turn around a POC for them, right? So the way this entire model or approach of uh, uh, taking help from external partners has developed is I would call a best of the breed approach, where the broad direction, the tone, and the north star is set by the company themselves, right? And then they leverage the strengths of the partners across various levels for giving them the speed, the scale, the agility, and the exposure to new technologies.
Got it, Ashwin. Couple of days back, and you were also mentioning about this incident where the codes are getting publicly exposed by this cutting edge technologies of Chat GPT. There was similar incident a couple of weeks back or 3 weeks back, wherein it was identified and it was accepted by OpenAI, that there was some privacy issue, which led to their ban in Italy. Right now, there has been a lot of signing the letters on LinkedIn, e-letters to give a 6 months AI kind of a holiday, that there would be no substantial uh, research and development in AI space till the time they assess the threat of AI to general world. what is your thought on this, entire signing of letter and discussion on stoppage of R&D on AI space?
See, I mean, I am okay. Very difficult to understand what went on in the minds of some of those tech leaders, right? Like Elon Musk or Steve Wozniak, when they signed and publicly published that letter. But see, the letter is not asking anyone to stop the development of AI completely. It is asking them to take a 6 months pause for reasons which they have articulated well, right? They are saying that companies are getting logged into a uh, race in which they are progressing at a breakneck speed to create systems and models which uh, we are not able to comprehend, right? And has the potential to do harm in addition to doing good as well, right? I mean, see, my only, I mean, I can only comment this from a common sense. One is that uh, from an industry perspective, if I were to look at this technology as a potential user, and it's a new technology, I would take a simple approach of testing it out, doing smaller pilots, right, and then applying the current or the contemporary standards of data privacy and information security. Because when you actually start working on it, it's a piece of software, right? So I would like to make sure that it adheres to all the requirements, regulatory as well as company policies, so that it handles my data in a way which I want, right? But I think the larger question, and I think towards which all these tech leaders were pointing, is that we need to have safety standards, and so that the technologies are not misused. We need to have governance framework, right, to ensure that it is used uh, in the most ethical way possible, right? And then there also has to be a self-regulation. Now, this is something probably new, but media industry has been doing it for quite some time, right? So, can we also have some self-regulation in this industry? So, no, in a nutshell, my take is that instead of putting a complete stop, because a momentum has been built, and this is we are at probably a unique inflection point, right? That we are getting powerful technologies at our fingertips very quickly. Okay, the I think instead of just putting a stoppage to it, I think we should find ways and means to govern it and control it.
Got it. And I personally also feel, Ashwin, that uh, like the way we have this IRDA to regulate the insurance domain, we have ICAI to regulate the chartered accountants domain. There has to be a central body, and obviously the country specific central body who basically govern and supervise the AI space in the respective country, in the respective geographic area. So some sort of audit checks and mechanism governance methodologies needs to be adopted to basically have a hold and control on this AI space. As you rightly said, things are changing, and we are at a very big inflection point. The OpenAI, they released GPT 3 almost a year and a half back. They released GPT 3.5, which is Chat GPT, in the month of November. They released Chat GPT 4 very recently, and they're planning to release GPT 5 in this year end. Okay, so you can understand how fast, and it's understandable that doing things fast, sometimes the quality checks and the privacy checks are not done properly. So yes, onto that. uh, with all this conversation and with all your thoughts, Ashwin, uh, how do you think pharma companies can become a analytics or ML AI compliant uh, companies in this heavily volatile AI space or ML space we are talking about? Like the way we have GPT, Chat GPT, GPT 4, and GPT 5 rolling in a very quick span of time, and this volatile market, and then we have other companies, other competitors coming up with their large language models, Uh, the day before yesterday, I saw uh, that Meta, they have come up with a segmentation model, image segmentation model, and people are overwhelmed with the accuracy of that particular model. Okay, so with this ever volatile market of AI space, how do pharma companies look like in the as a future pharma companies?
See, there is no doubt that a lot of these technologies have the potential, right, to benefit all industries, let alone pharma. Okay, uh, but the approach has to be business driven. The approach has to be ROI driven, right? The approach has to be customer driven, because that is why the companies are here in the first place, right? So uh, again, the companies have to take a business first approach, and create their north star and all the KPIs which cascade from that north star, and see that what capabilities, what initiatives or what innovations are required to bring about a change to these KPIs and these milestones which they have plotted on their roadmap. Right. So there has to be a roadmap of evolution which has to be plotted by every pharma company, and a lot of companies are doing it. So a lot of companies have their own digital data analytics journeys mapped out. Right. It is the mix of the use cases, and it is the speed with which you will explore and discard or adopt specific technology that will be very very dynamic, that will continue to change, right? uh, I think pharma companies are already to now to make that happen, right? Pharma companies are already looking or working through an ecosystem kind of approach, right? Where they are getting influenced by a certain set of companies, where they can taking the help of another set of companies, and then they have partners who will help them execute with this. I think this entire model has evolved over a period of time, not by design but by default. And I think uh, now going ahead, if there is some clarity on what are the technologies. For example, GPT is coming up with a roadmap, right? It's a roadmap, GPT 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is not a fly by night kind of thing that somebody has launched something and then vanished, right? If you know that there are certain powerful technologies here to stay, you can actually factor in those as a part of your overall roadmap, because you know what you want to do over the next 3 years as a business. You also know that there is some technology in the market which is going to play out, right? And provide me with better and stronger features, right? So you can actually create your own use case journeys for adoption, and then align the behind it ecosystem of partners behind it. uh, so there is see, all this will require a lot of time and effort, right? So that initial uh, mindset has to be created. That change management has to happen uh, within the leaders within this industry, and also within the practitioners of this industry. People have to start letting go of the old ways of working, the old systems, and gradually start adopting these newer systems. So I think again, it's a combination of these two basic principles. That one is to take change as the only constant, right? And adopt to it. And second is to take a roadmap driven approach, have your use case journey mapped out, and keep it dynamic and flexible, so that you keep enough room for new technologies to come in.
Got it. So being agile and being embracing is basically the key to propel in this world of ever changing MLAI. Thanks, Ashwin, for your kind words and for your time. We have certain questions, audience questions with us. Uh, should we go ahead and deliver those questions to you?
Yeah, I can see two questions here put in the chat by Rajeshri. Viewer question one: how are AI and machine learning being used to enhance drug safety and improve pharmacovigilance efforts in the pharmaceutical industry?
So, Ashwin, you went on mute. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let me take the first question. Uh, okay. So the uh, pharmacovigilance today is seeing a lot of analytics coming in, right? Pharmacovigilance essentially is the monitoring of the uh, effects of the drug on the patient population after the drug has been launched. Okay, so it is also called post-market surveillance because you have launched a drug in the market. Okay,
Mhm.
there is also pharmacovigilance which is done when the drug is under clinical trial, but during a clinical trial it is being given to only a limited number of patients, right? So your patient population is small. That part of PV or pharmacovigilance is called clinical PV. What you do after the drug is launched is called post-market surveillance, right? uh, so the analytics is being used to do what is called as pattern recognition and signal detection. Uh, this has been going on in the industry for quite some time, but today with AI it is possible to actually do this more accurately. Uh, for example, is the drug showing any pattern in terms of its effects? Now, when we say effects, it is side effects, and the medical terminology for it is adverse events or adverse reactions, right? And there are many levels of classification of those, right? So today it is possible to actually accurately segment and say that okay, this particular type of patient population with this kind of race or ethnicity or this kind of demographics is getting impacted in this way by this drug. Okay, so the analysis of a pattern is much more accurate. Okay, that is one. Second is again during the yeah, so there is another concept called longitudinal studies. Okay, now these are the studies which you do by taking data across multiple databases and over a period of time. Okay, that means you would like to see the long term effects or impact of a drug, right? And today you have big data technologies, so it makes this kind of analysis possible. Another type of analysis which is done today is social media analytics, right? Uh, some of the pharma companies provide you with social media channels where you can proactively go and log in a complaint if you're facing a side effect after consuming a drug. But then there are a lot of forums, patient connect forums or no help groups, right? Or even no places like Facebook or Instagram or Twitter where people talk about their experiences after consuming a medical product, right? Now pharma companies are doing a lot of social media listening, so they will actually collect data from all of this social media in real time and do the analysis of what is the sentiment of the customer, what is the experience of the customer, right? And then triage it into whether this is just a complaint about the product or this needs to be reported. Okay, if a patient is complaining about a side effect and if a pharma company comes to know about it, they are bound by regulation to report it, right? So a lot of this triaging now is being done by AI engines, which you can uh, understand now is a classification engine which is running in the backend, right? So these are some of the ways in which analytics is being used across pharmacovigilance.
Thanks, Ashwin. There is one another question, and I guess you have already shared some light on how analytics is being or MLAI is being used in development of drugs and testing of those drugs. But if you can quickly touch base on how these cutting edge technologies are helping marketing of these products, marketing of these APIs, or reaching out to the HCPs, healthcare providers, healthcare, hospitals, diagnostic centers, how analytics is helping uh, in this marketing space.
Okay, so let me take two examples. Let me take an example of a use case from the API segment of the pharma industry, which is essentially a B2B segment, right? So you as a pharma company are selling your API, which is the active pharmaceutical ingredient, to another pharma company which will use the API to make its finished formulation. Okay. Uh, uh, this is a pure B2B business. Okay, one pharma company selling to other pharma company, and given that you are developing your API, your customer is also developing his formulation, and depending upon the complexity of the drug, it will take 1 year or 2 year or 3 year, whether it's a, depending upon whether it's a low, medium or high complexity drug, right? So that means that the sales cycle or the cycle of your engagement with the customer is also long. In the API business, it could be anywhere between say 9 months to 18 months or even more than that. Okay. And during this period, there is a high chance that the relationship may go cold. Okay. The customer, you went and met the customer. The customer said, "Hey, no, I am at the drawing stage of my formulation development. Come back to me after 3 months." You logged it in your CRM, but then you forgot about it, right? So the ball gets dropped. Okay. Or the customer migrated to a competition because the competition was able to keep the customer engaged, right? So I think one of the very interesting use case here is, can we can we actually monitor this in real time, and can we build some customer attrition prediction on this? Okay.
Mhm.
If you're not meeting the customer for more than 1 month, there is a potential the customer might move out, right? And then we'll talk to competition. Okay, customer asked you to meet him, but you did not meet the customer. There is no entry on your calendar. I mean, you can set your business rules, you can use AI engines, right? But what I'm essentially saying is that you can create early warning signals to tell the sales set that in this account there is a danger of customer getting dropped. Okay. uh, Same thing you can do even after the customer becomes your customer by placing an order on you. Okay.
Mhm.
The most of the API business is like a commodity business unless your API is differentiated. Okay. And a lot of customers do spot purchases. Okay. That means that while you are the preferred partner for the customer, tomorrow he found a better deal in the market, and if the price differential is attractive enough, he will move on. Okay. So you need to keep a tab on market development. You need to keep a tab on who's exporting what. You have IMS data which gives you export data,
Mhm.
right? So you need to keep a tab of what is happening in the market so that you can track know whether the customer is still buying from me or he started buying from no other agencies as well, other pharma companies as well, right? So customer attrition prediction could be one use case here.
Got it. Got it. There is another very unique question coming from one of our audience, Ashwin. Uh, what is the future of the personalized medicine?
Okay. uh,
So I think the user wants to understand how these AI based technologies can augment the decision or augment the prescription release of a doctor to a patient. So that is where, and I'll give you a small example. So there is one gentleman in our area. Whenever people goes out to him, uh, obviously there is no one in the world that who would have all the names of the medication, all the names of the formulation in their mind. And the gentleman is somewhere around 60 years old person. Now he very usually he very frequently keeps on checking about the formulation of those medications before writing those medication to the patients, right? So how and how these AI technologies or how AI solutions can augment these healthcare professionals to create those personalized medication prescriptions for the patients. I think that's what the user wants to understand with this
is it
personalized
personalized medicine or is it personalized prescriptions?
it's personalized medicine.
See, personalized medicine is very different from prescription generation. I mean, these are two totally different things. Okay, personalized medicine is, again, to the best of my understanding, creating a biotech product. Okay, not your normal chemical compounds, creating a biotech product which is created or customized after taking and analyzing your gene sample.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, so you'll have to give a sample of your DNA from your say bone marrow, and then the company will synthesize a biotech product which will target this specific gene which is there in your body. That is personalized medicine. That is very, very expensive. That is a new field, and there are
Mhm.
companies who are working on it.
Okay, so I happen to see one of the use case on in this gene therapy or DNA tech company. So there's a company in US. So the founder of that company is testing all these health tech and gene tech experiments on himself, and he's somewhere at the age of 45, but the way his metabolic activities are taking place, the doctors are assessing him to be a 25 or 27-year-old guy. So I think that is where we are heading towards. The skin complexion, the skin texture, the way his lungs are functioning, his internal metabolic activities are functioning. It's kind of revolutionizing the entire health tech domain, Ashwin. Ashwin, will you be able to take one more question in
Yeah,
case?
absolutely, absolutely.
Sure. So one of the question which is listed here is with respect to supply chain, and trust
Mhm.
me, whatever, I mean, we reached out to various pharma life sciences company and trying to understand their pain points. 95% of them say that supply chain is one of their biggest pain point, starting from forecasting, starting from demand planning, and how analytics MLAI can help streamline and smoothen this entire supply chain management in farm and life sciences.
See, if you look at the nature of business of pharma, right? Um you would probably realize that it is, in terms of the overall profile and no growth, it is to a large extent quite secular in nature. Okay, that means you should not be seeing a lot of variations either on the higher side or on the lower side, barring exceptional events like a COVID or a SARS outbreak or a war, right? But of late, this kind of events are becoming more and more frequent, right? And I think that is what is upsetting the calculations of the supply chain planners. Okay, now one of the challenges, or the biggest challenge for supply chain again, is the uh, fragmentation of data. Okay, for every part or sub-function of the supply chain, which is for planning, forecasting, inventory, procurement, vendor management, there is a solution for every part, and these solutions or these technologies cater only to their respective functions or sub-functions. So you are having a landscape where there are fragmented solutions, fragmented databases which do not talk to each other. Okay, lot of uh, supply chain activities still happens on Excel sheets. Okay, so there are two things which have to be done fundamentally. I mean, regardless of whether this is supply chain or not. One is that you have to create an integrated process, right, which provides you with a telescopic view of the entire life cycle across supply chain, right? And you can create this process by taking different views or different lenses, right? You can see the journey of a product from the raw material stage through finished good stage till the shipment and delivery stage. You can take a customer centric view. You are seeing that the customer places an order, how is the order processed through the entire supply chain and gets delivered back to the customer, right? You can take a vendor centric view, saying that no, this is the journey I'm experiencing with my pharma customers, right? So you need to develop these different journeys and different processes, okay, and then plan to bring in digital and digitize this all these journeys to the extent possible. So there has to be a platform thinking, and unlike in the past where you used to have large monolithic platforms, today you have platforms where you can quickly add modules and you can scale up, right? You can scale up, scale down, so that flexibility is there. Okay, this has to be done. This will ensure that first of all you create visibility, which is not there. Second is you create single source of truth, single source of data. And third is you are creating a system where data is able to flow across, flow between different functions and modules seamlessly. That is very, very important. Okay, again, what you need for analytics is clean and correct data, and this is something which has to be done across any function which is which is fragmented and not digitized. Okay, and then once you do this, then I think you are there 50-60%. Then it's a matter of bringing your subject matter expertise and fine tuning, say, your forecasting techniques or your planning model, right? And that is something which the supply chain teams can do with their experience and expertise. But this foundation has to be set for the analytics to come in.
Sure, Ashwin, and that is where this study of epistemology, which we talked about, how clean and how complete your data is, how integrated your data is, so that you have a one stop or one single source of truth for all your analytics needs. With this, I would like to thank you, Ashwin, from the bottom of my heart. Uh, I mean, I'm pretty much sure the audience would have been highly, enlightened with the words, the use cases that you put forward, the future of ML AI, predominantly into pharma life sciences domain. We would love to have you, and we have certain other questions there in the comment box, but due to paucity of time, we'll not be able to, discuss those with you. But obviously, in the near future, we would love to have you again on board and discuss some of the newer technologies when we have at that point of time. So thanks Ashwin for your valuable time and discussing this topic with us.
No, thank you, Deepak, and once again, thanks to Indus Net team as well. I think uh, the uh, the idea of having such podcast is wonderful, and I think the agenda and theme for this podcast times wonderfully with the events happening around the world, right? On deep tech. So no, thanks once again, and I'm more than happy to again come on board with you and engage into a conversation on similar topics.
Thanks Ashwin, thanks for your time.
Thank you,
So with
thank
this,
you
I
very much.
think we'll wrap up this digital success exchange. Thank you, audience. Thank you for being part of this wonderful session with Ashwin, and looking forward for such enriching session in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.